Thank you, everyone, for turning up today. Hopefully, the website and the information on the website has already answered all your questions, but if it hasn't, we're here to answer them. And also, we just thought we'd do a very quick introduction. So apologies if this is reiterating what's already in the on the website and the information pack and things, but we just thought it'd be helpful just to give a quick overview of the program, and then we're open to any questions you have. So we'll get underway. First of all, although most of you, I imagine, already know who I am, but if you don't, I'm Richard Fletcher, and I'm the principal and producer at Libertine Pictures, which is a Wellington-based production company. I'm a producer of film and television, and in the years gone by, have worked as a distributor and also worked at the New Zealand Film Commission. And the principal partner on this is 113 Partners, and representing them today is Ian Murray, and in the background, John Gregory and Stephanie. Ian at 113 Partners has been providing the major learning component to the enterprise scheme in Australia. So, Ian, do you just want to talk a little bit about what 113 does and what you've been doing with enterprise?
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard. So 113 Partners is an advisory firm specifically for creative industries, and more specifically, again, for the film and television industry, which comprises 80 to 90% of our work. That is, a combination of different things, working with business owners in terms of how they can make a stronger, more sustainable business. But we also do a lot of work with government agencies in helping support with learning for screen businesses to understand how they can develop and operate their businesses in a way which is going to allow them to really take advantage of the increasing globalization of the industry, and how they can lead into those opportunities and try to really build long-term sustainable businesses which can really create content which is resonating with global audiences.
The program was developed by Libertine and 113 with the support of Hinterland, which is Sharon Menzies, the rebate lender, and also support of Spada. It's funded principally by the 3 New Zealand funding agencies, and then we also have some industry partners, principally Netflix, Grant Thornton, the accountants, and Gallagher's the insurance broker, and also the Vista Foundation have also come on board. So the genesis of the program has come about through both Ian and my experiences from different way, and the need, particularly in the current market, and particularly too, I think, with the policy changes that happened 18 months ago with New Zealand On Air, where you can co-fund with New Zealand On Air on the rebate. It highlighted the need for New Zealand producers to expand their international relationships, and also to have a better understanding of the business side of our industry. So that was the sort of genesis of the program. And I guess if you try to put it into a nutshell, what it is about, it's artificially trying to give you, whoever ends up going on a black book. So it's an accelerator program to help New Zealand producers develop a black book of international contacts. Alongside of that, with support from the workshops and the training, to give the business understanding to actually be able to use those relationships. So what it's not is it's not speed dating, it's not pitching. So which we'll go into a little bit more detail, but when you will meet people in the international markets in Sydney, London, and LA, you'll be going to their offices, you'll be seeing what posters hang on their wall, but you won't be expected to pitch to them. So the idea is you get to understand what their business is about, what they do, what type of projects they're looking for. So you could go back to them a couple of months later saying, I was on the delegation, I'd now like to pitch you a project. So it's very much about building relationships and building knowledge. As the slide in front of you said, it's a 5-month program, so it's running from July until October. It's aimed at entrepreneurial New Zealand producers, so it's not exclusively creative or exclusively business focused. It's both, with a heavy leaning obviously on the business side. It's made up of a selection of workshops, 2-day workshops, a US online market training component, and then 3 international market visits to Sydney, London, and LA. Who should apply? Obviously, you're all here because of it is interest. It's aimed at established producers. It's not aimed at emerging producers. So you're expected to have a good period of experience. You're expected to have at least one either broadcast or cinematic credit, and you have projects that, whilst I'm saying not pitching them, but you have projects that would benefit from this exposure. And also it's for New Zealand citizens and permanent residents.
There are a few, as Richard touched on, a few components, that will be sort of rolling out as part of the program over the 5 months. So the 3 key components to that are a series of 2-day intensive workshops. The first of those will be held in Auckland. The second one will be combined with the Sydney market visit. And then the third one, which will sort of be towards the end of the program, will be back in Auckland again. Those 2-day workshops are very much focused on the commercial and business related components of training and trying to upskill practitioners in all of those elements. The market visits themselves are really, as Richard was saying, about trying to develop those relationships and give you access to a Rolodex of names and contacts so that you can sort of go out there and spruik your wares and your projects as you move forward. So those will be 1-week visits in Sydney, in London, and Los Angeles. The London and Los Angeles ones will be combined as a 2-week sort of process. Go to London first, and then over to Los Angeles after that. Before doing the London Los Angeles one, there will also be a 2-week online training sessions that'll be conducted from the US by US practitioners. And that's really about trying to just make you aware of how the US operates as a marketplace, because it is quite a unique beast, but it's probably the most critical of the marketplaces to understand for us moving forward, because so many streaming services and decision making, commissioning type of decisions are made out of that marketplace. Of course, London and Europe are equally important, but it's they probably are a little bit easier for us to understand as New Zealand practitioners, whereas the US market probably deserves a little bit more of a deeper dive, and so we will do that with that 2-week online training course in advance of those components. We try to make the program as interactive as possible as well. So we really will be encouraging you to not just learn from us and from the market visits you're doing, but also to ideally form close bonds with each other. The participants who are actually going in there, we want to really come out together as a cohort at the end and really be able to support and strengthen each other's businesses moving forward as well.
Another key component is it's screen, so it's not film or television specific. So in terms of the market visits, that will be a mixture of film and television people, and it'll be a broad range. It'll be managers, agents, distributors, sales agents, from both perspectives, some broadcasters, and obviously, with Netflix as a partner, it will include streamers as well. And in the likes of Sydney and London, it will also include presentations from the funding agencies in those territories, and also an exploration into co-production. So that is the side which Sharon Menzies and myself are sort of driving, with Ian and his team driving more the workshop and the training element. But the intention is it would be a number of meetings per day, and also on the market visits. Also during the workshops, there'll be it won't be purely presented by our team. There'll also be individual experts coming in for specific areas. So, for example, obviously we have Grant Thornton and Gallagher's attached. Grant Thornton will be coming in to talk about tax and also the audit aspects of the rebate. Similarly, Gallagher's will be talking about insurance, but we will be bringing other people in as well. So there'll be a broad range and representative range of different elements of the industry and different types of sales agents, distributors, etc.
Yeah, we want everybody to come away with stronger business models and also the tools and the relationships to be able to take those off to actually execute them as well. So that's the key component to that.
Yeah, and once the participants are selected, obviously, if people have specific areas of interest, we'll be trying to, to tailor around that too. And in the selection of the cohort, the intention is, obviously subject to those who apply, but the intention is to have a broad cohort, so it's not all it's not 10 feature film producers out of the 12 or only drama producers. So it will be a mixture, is the intention.
Now, a lot of this information is available on the guidelines and on the website, but again, we'll just sort of take you through this particular a few key components, which I think are just worth reiterating because these are the mandatory elements. We can't have partial participation in the program, so key dates in particular are really important to reiterate because we do need people who are going to be applying to undertake that they're going to be able to participate in the entirety of the program. The first component of it, which is actually just the application process. So the key dates for that to be aware of. The first and most important one is that the applications close on the 16th of May, and we won't be accepting late applications. So you'll need to make sure you get your applications in by the due date. We'll then be reviewing those, and there will be a selection panel who'll be sort of reviewing all those applications, shortlisting potential participants, and then a number of people being invited to attend Zoom interviews, which will be held on the 10th and 11th of June. Once the program is actually off and running, the key dates, and these are the ones which really need you to go and check your diaries and make sure that you are available for all of these ones, will be the first workshop, which is in Auckland, as I said. That's on the 10th and 11th of July. That's followed by the 1 week market visit, which will be happening towards the end of July from the 21st to the 25th. That market visit will also include the second of the 2-day workshops, which will be held in Sydney. The third component is that 2-week online marketplace training. Now, that's not required for 8 hours a day. It'll probably be 1 to 2 hours a day for that 2-week period, but that will be between the 11th and the 22nd of August. So that's in advance of the actual marketplace visits. And we'll be able to provide with some more specifics on the actual timing and duration for each of those sessions as we get closer. But yeah, that's probably the 2-week period where you'll just make sure that you're not out of the country, or where you can at least join for online learning sessions. Then the 2-week market visit, which is London followed by Los Angeles, will happen towards the end of September, from the 21st of September through to the 3rd of October. And then the final 2-day workshop in Auckland will be on the 23rd and 24th of October. Now, again, all of these details are in the guidelines and on the website. But please, just before you get too far down the track with your applications, make sure that you can actually attend all of those components, because it is an absolutely critical and mandatory element of the actual application process.
And just to flag, in terms of the interview and selection process, that's been managed by 113 Partners and Spada. So to avoid any potential conflict of interest, Hinterland and Libertine are not taking part in that interview process, or the selection process has been managed by 113 Spada. And just on that,
I'll just make mention of the fact, because people do have asked this a few times. It is in the guidelines and the FAQs, but I'll just reiterate it that while we are asking people to supply financial data, the only people who will be reviewing that financial data is 113 Partners. None of that will be made available to any of the other course conveners, and it also will not be made available to any of the sponsors or the people who've made the program possible. So only me and my team will be reviewing those, and it's purely from the purpose of understanding the financial viability of your business and making sure that we're not putting ourselves into an uncomfortable situation with participants who end up getting into financial strife midway through a program.
Thanks to the generous support of our funders, the program is very heavily subsidised. So the fee per participant is only $2,000 plus GST. So that includes all the training, all your airfares, all your accommodation, and any events that take part in that place. So it will involve some catering, but not all catering. So there will be some costs that you will have to incur yourself, which we would advise, which would be travel insurance, daily living costs whilst you're away in terms of laundry and any meals that are not covered, and your transfers to the domestic airport. If you are out of Auckland, your domestic travel costs will also be covered for the workshops in Auckland. There's 4 scholarships available, 2 from being provided by Hinterland and Libertine, 2 from underrepresented communities, and 2 general scholarships. There's a separate scholarship form to fill out on the website, and in addition to the scholarships, as I said, 2 from Libertine, 2 from Hinterland. We will provide mentorship to the 4 successful scholarship winners. It is a very heavily subsidised program.
Absolutely, no, it's the actual cost of running the program is quite high, but we managed to bring those costs right down for the applicants and all the participants themselves. When you go through the guidelines, and the actual application documents. Again, the application documents themselves are also available on the website. So make yourself familiar with the application form and what's required from your application. I'd encourage you to do that as early as possible, because there is a little bit of work in pulling your application together. The other documents which we will require alongside the application form is some details of your development slate, so projects which are currently on there, or at least the 2 projects which we'll be using as workshop tools as we're working through the program. Your CVs and filmography for your own personal background, and as I said, we require FY24 and 25 financial statements. Now, I understand the FY25s probably will still be an interim stage for a lot of people, so it's fine for them to not be proper finalised accounts, but we would like to see those coming from your accountants if possible, so that we know that they've been reviewed by an external organisation. And if you are going to apply for that very generous scholarship, then there's a separate form which is optional for you to fill in as well, and that has its own set of questions which you'll need to answer around that.
Whilst the application deadline is 16th May, and obviously a month away, we'd certainly recommend that people get onto it as soon as possible, because it is quite an intensive application process and quite a lot of thought required into it in terms of where your business is at, where you want to take it, etc. So, we encourage you to get stuck into that earlier rather than later.
Yeah. And when you're going through your application, just so you know what we're looking for. This is an international program where we're really looking for businesses which are going to be able to take advantage of those international opportunities, and so where your approach to storytelling and how you're running your business is going to align with that. We are looking for businesses which have got vision and who can demonstrate that they want to be market leaders in New Zealand, and to really take this opportunity and make the most of it, not just for their own businesses, but to demonstrate to other participants in the industry what the benefits of really leaning into those global opportunities look like. When we're looking at your slate, we want to make sure they're aligned with that international marketplace as well, and so that aligns with the overall program. And that you have thought about how you're actually going to strategically grow and become commercially viable and sustainable as well. And of course, we really are looking for commitments to diversity and inclusion as well, and an understanding of the commercial benefits that diversity and inclusion can bring to your business. So I'd like you to talk to all of those components as you're developing your applications. So that was it for the recap of the actual program itself. I might stop sharing the screen so that we can sort of see faces a little bit more easily, and we can figure it out.
So I suspect all of you have probably had a quick look at the website already, but if not, there's extensive detail on the website. There's application guidelines which explain what we've talked through in more detail. There's also a short information brochure, and obviously all the application forms. So there's a lot of information on the website, and there's also the ability to ping through a question if something comes up whilst you do your application.
If anybody has any questions, please ask away.
Someone's got to be first.
Well, we've been incredibly comprehensive in answering all of your questions in the guidelines already. So, Chloe.
Shall I be first then? While I will not be applying, because I'm a practical production producer rather than a creative developer, I have to applaud the initiative of this in an industry that, in my view at the moment, is deeply struggling from a lack of positive direction. So I think that's incredibly great. Can I just ask, out of my own curiosity, you mentioned that you are not really looking for emerging producers and that you want a slate, but what's the kind of definition of that? For example, if somebody had produced, say, 1 or 2 features, does that make them emerging or active?
Well, I think that the main guideline really is, that they would have had to have had at least 5 years, of active experience in the industry. Presumably, if they've done 1 or 2 feature films, they would meet that criteria. And certainly, the other element there is ensuring they have had, a project which has gone to air either in a broadcast environment or in a theatrical environment. So in that instance, somebody who had done 1 or 2 features absolutely would be, eligible to apply for the program. What we are looking for, as I said, is people who have got active projects on their slate, because we need them to have, at least a couple of projects that we can consider as and some live data for them to be able to use as they work their way through the program, and things which they can turn their minds to as they actually develop these relationships and capabilities. So, ideally, people would have at least two projects or more on their slate. I understand with feature film producers, you don't necessarily want to have dozens of projects, unlike unlike television, where you might have a slightly larger slate. But we'd need at least a few projects on a feature film person's slate in order to properly take advantage of the program. And as I said previously, this is an internationally based program, and so we want projects which can take full advantage of that component of the program as well.
Thank you.
David.
God, just actually want to echo what Chloe said. First of all, professional development for producers is an area that has been, we need more of it. We need some of it and we need more of it. And this looks like a great scheme. My question is around, the genre, really. It's around genre and also distribution. So we're saying screen and we're saying film and TV. Are we saying scripted rather than factual, or both? That's the first question related to that. I mean, some of us work in, across range of genres. And also, are we saying theatrical and legacy media and streaming, but also are we including, if you're producing, creating, developing stuff for online and social media, which is increasingly where audiences are watching our content? So, 2 questions there.
I think if we start backwards, start your own question. It's principally aimed at long form, but certainly newer forms of media and distribution will absolutely be touched on. But although 5 days is a decent whack of time, we will be limited in terms of how deep we can go into those relationships in the market. So the focus will be on long form. It is agnostic in terms of screen, in terms of film, television, or elsewhere where you sit. We expect the majority of applicants to be scripted focused, but it is not purely a scripted program. If you also dabble in non-scripted, you're welcome to apply. And also, once the makeup of the participants is confirmed, the program will be slightly tailored to take that into account, principally in respect to the market visits, but also in terms of the content.
Okay, thanks.
Ian, have you got anything further you want to answer?
No, I think that's right. We are looking for a diversity of voices and content types here. It isn't. We don't want a homogenous group. We want everybody to sort of come from different format genres. Across everything. We're really keen to sort of try to find ways for that to work for everybody. But yeah, to reiterate the other part about the digital versus long form or heritage media. The relationships you'll be developing absolutely would probably be more appropriate for people who are operating in more long form traditional media formats. So
I think too, and we're hoping that the cohort has a good balance and range of producers with different skill sets. Because ideally, as Ian touched on, is an outcome from the program will be that cohort actually remains quite tight and that they can draw on each other's complementary skills.
I can ask a question. Can't quite see how to put my hand up. How big's the cohort?
It's 12.
Okay.
Yeah, up to 12. I certainly hope, given the volume of people on today, we'll have no problem filling that 12, but it'll be, 12, up to 12, no more than 12. Just a couple of, very practical things to flag. Ian touched upon, if you're selected, you will have to make a commitment, and also you'll be required to sign a contract committing to the time, because obviously there's a big investment on an individual basis. So, people will need to complete the program. But also, given, the current world we live in, if you think you are going to have problems with the US, gaining entry to the US, those sorts of things need to be flagged up front. But saying that, we are meeting with the US Embassy next week to make sure that, a group of 12 New Zealanders don't get arrested on entry into LA. Completely unrelated, on the application form, it's more back to David's point, there is a box in there to put any thoughts of your own in terms of areas which you'd specifically like to be covered. So, whilst there is a clear structure to the program already and a lot of the content is already sort of in place, there is that flexibility to tailor to the needs of the participants as well. So, please feel free to add your comments in there if there's things specifically you'd like to see or specific areas of interest.
There is an FAQ section on the website, and there is also contact details on the website. So if you do have any questions which you suddenly remember once you get off this call, by all means do email, and we'll try to get back to you with answers to those. And if there are things which we feel we should be putting up for everybody to sort of access, we'll add those to the FAQs as we move forward too. Just a few little pointers and tips which I might give you, having had to read an awful lot of applications over the years from organisations who are applying to these sorts of things. Let me start with the first one, which is the use of AI. It's become a thing over the last couple of years in particular. And while we're not saying you can't use AI to help you with your idea formations as you're going through and answering some of these questions, I will absolutely point out that when you're reading an application which has been generated from an AI, text generator, it's very apparent and obvious from an assessment perspective that that's happened. So, while it's an incredibly useful tool to help you sort of, make sure you haven't missed anything in your application or to test to make sure that it seems to be a strong application, I would urge you not to just rely on it to generate all the text in your applications, because it probably won't make for a very compelling sort of application. And the flip side of that, and the other bit which I'd sort of encourage you to sort of think about as you're putting your applications together, and again, put yourself into an assessor's perspective for a moment, is that things which stand out on the page when we are assessing these sorts of applications are things which really have a strong tone of voice, where we really understand who you are and where you're, what you're interested in, what you're passionate about comes through in the writing. So don't be too generic in the way in which you approach answering the questions. Sort of really try to, stand out from the crowd by letting us know what you're really interested in, passionate and keen on, and try to have that come through in the application as best you can. There are word limits in the each of the questions as well, so have a look at those. We're not forcing you to sort of go into a grant portal to sort of fill things out, but you've got a hard word limit on it. But the word limits are there for a reason, because we have got an awful lot to read through, and so try not to be too abusive of going over those word limits too much if you can. But they are there as a fairly strong indicator of what we want to read.
I think so. If you're unsure whether you think you'll qualify, if you have quite the right experience, please send through an email to the email on the website if you've got any concerns about that, and sort of can get some guidance on to help you make that decision.
I just have one question. How many finished scripts would be needed?
None. I mean, you need to have projects in development, but you're not having to supply any materials related to those projects. I think the expectation is that you will have a handful of projects at a stage, and that you in the immediate future that you'd be wanting to take those to market, to take advantage of the relationships you've built. So I think, you certainly want some of those projects to be advanced, but you're not required to submit any materials per se as part of the application process.
How many projects should we have in development?
There's no prescribed limit. As Ian touched on, a feature film producer, if they're purely feature film, is likely to have less than, say someone who is, a TV producer, and obviously a scripted producer is likely to have less than a non-scripted producer. So it's going to be reflective of your business and also at what stage you're in your career. So there's no prescribed or set limits or nominated numbers per se.
Cool, thank you.
Chloe.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
You did touch on the word co-production, and because I think we would all acknowledge that the US marketplace is not only a unique beast, but at this particular juncture an unfathomable one. And you mentioned Europe, but I was just looking the other day at all of the co-production treaties that we actually have. And will that be part of your discussion points at some time? Because in trying to get things up, sometimes co-productions have an advantage to them, possibly.
I mean, certainly in respect of Australia and the UK, we will bring in respectively Screen Australia and the BFI to talk as part of those market visits. But I'm sure as part of the workshops, and Ian can correct me if I'm wrong, the intention is there'll be session, if not sessions, on co-production. And the various treaties will be looked at, and possibly the likes of Chris Payne can come in and present on specifically on that.
I have another question just that relates to that, is just in terms of the post, so sound, animation, VFX. Is that kind of going to tie into that? I guess is a good question because it's an opportunity. Yeah.
We were talking about this the other day. We're not intending in terms of the market visit to visit vendors. We're of the view that if you're going to use a vendor in a foreign market, say for example, you're going to do a co-production with the UK and do your post-production in the UK, we feel that it is beholden on your UK partner to have those relationships. And
no, God, no. We would be doing it. We would be doing it here. Just more the No, God, no. That's our thing, right? So just more the I guess the background of that stuff and what we want the backdrop to be for New Zealand. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Sorry. In terms, are you talking about post reinvestment or?
All of it.
Yeah.
Just if we're trying to leverage that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean the whole cycle of development through to exploitation will be covered, and as we discussed, it's not a creatively focused program, so it'll be on the business elements at each stage, but all the whole project cycle will be followed through from development, in terms of how you package a project, how you pitch a project, right through to making the most of any incentives, and also the likes of post-production investment and how you work with your vendors, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, with an internationally focused program, the reality is that in many circumstances we are going to have to deal with some form of co-production type of environment, be that use of other producers in other territories, or it may be vendors or other people who are contributing to the finance plan of those projects in some way from other territories. So we'll absolutely be looking at that and understanding what the implications of that are from a business modelling perspective and at a project level as well.
And one thing, for example, that will be looked at is trying to structure your program to structure your financing, not just to get your project made, but to try and maximise any potential returns. So it's weighing up those sorts of balances and looking at different models and what different models might mean in respect of that. And obviously, that's going to play into those sorts of questions.
When it comes to the aligning us with the US market or UK market, does that mean that we are pushing to collaborate with the bigger production houses that are there?
Not necessarily. I mean that is a business model, but it's not a necessity that's what we're expecting of anybody. As I said, we're looking for a diversity of business models here and types of productions. So the focus of this is predominantly on independent producers out of New Zealand. So we certainly want to encourage business models which are going to support that independence as much as possible. In some instances, that can mean working alongside larger organisations if it makes good strategic sense to do so. But no, there's not a compelling reason that you need to be looking to cozying up to large multinationals as part of the program.
I mean, obviously the market visits still being locked in, but the intention is to give a snapshot, so it won't be necessarily meeting all the streamers. It'll be meeting a selection, and instead of say meeting all the major TV distributors, it'll be meeting one or two of those, and then a couple of independents. So the intention is to get a range and not just focus on one sector of or one portion of the industry. So you get exposure to a range of market players at different points in the market, so it'll suit different projects.
What about when it comes to the distribution part?
We'll be meeting with a range of distributors and sales agents, but every project sort of needs to find its own right resources and project partners. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach here at all. What we're trying to do is just to make people as familiar with the opportunities which exist out there, and to ideally give some relationships which may be of use. But again, we're not being prescriptive as to how we feel you should or shouldn't go about finding those right distribution partners for your particular projects.
Any more questions?
Just a purely logistical one. The US marketplace training, that 2-week period, that's going to be 1 to 2 hours per day. So that's going to be most days in that 2-week period.
Yeah, Monday to Friday.
Yeah. Have you thought about what time of day that's going to be? Because in case one's overseas, that's just part of logistical planning.
It'll be LA timing because the principal who's delivering the program is LA based, and she will be bringing in LA based colleagues. So it'll be earlier part of the day.
Be on LA timing.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Well, as I said, there is the opportunity for you to sort of jump into the website and to send through emails if you've got any more questions which you haven't thought of or which you're too shy to talk about here. So by all means, do hit us up on the email, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can on any of those questions. And yeah, as you start working your way through the application forms and guidelines, if there's anything which sort of pops up there which you haven't had a chance to read through yet and which you want some more clarification on or clarity, just by all means reach out to us and we'll see what we can answer for you as we go forward.
Thank you, and thank you all for turning up and expressing interest in the program. It's exciting to be underway.